and all of them talking about fear. We're the ones getting killed. We're the ones getting shot. We're the ones that we're denied to live in certain communities. We've been hung, we've been shot, and all you do is keep hearing about fear. It's amazing to me why we keep loving this country, and this country does not love us back.
Okay, before we move on, in our last episode, we had tons of emails from black people all over the country basically saying we need the police. So how do you respond to that?
Of course we need the police. There's some great police officers out there, but the system needs to change if you want to develop real trust. Because all it takes is one incident and the question of trust comes into play.
Versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097211. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count.
And don't think justice was served. I don't think the jury did their job. I think they knew what they were going to do from the gate. I think it was racist based, and it was racist from the black point of view.
Okay, Albert, tell us how you really felt after the OJ verdict.
First of all, let me say this. As a black man, I felt terrible about the 2 deaths that took place. And you want to know why?
Why?
Because I'm a human and I have compassion. When you lose your compassion, you lose your soul. When you lose your soul, it becomes easy to block out problems that need to be fixed. One of those historic problems is the criminal justice system. Let's take a look.
1873, the Colfax Massacre. A white mob attacked the local African-American community, resulting in the deaths of dozens of black people. 1919, the Elaine Massacre. A white mob attacked black sharecroppers, leading to the deaths of 100 to 200 black people. 1921, the Tulsa Race Massacre. Also known as Black Wall Street, a white mob destroyed a prosperous black community, killing hundreds. 1923, the Rosewood Massacre. A white mob attacked the black community in response to false accusations, resulting in several deaths and the destruction of a wealthy black town. In almost all of these massacres, the black victims were charged with a crime.
You know, I never learned this in school. This is depressing.
Listen to me, young fella. There are so many massacres that are not even listed. Massacres are a big part of American history, and the judicial system did not help the victims. They blamed the victims.
You know, Albert, it seems like a lot of these judicial atrocities took place in the 20s.
No. Racism and the judicial system continue to work together like a well-oiled machine, well past the 20s. Into modern times. Roll the tape.
John Carter was a black man who was lynched in Little Rock in 1927, grabbed by a mob. Carter was hanged from a telephone pole, shot, dragged through the streets, and then burned in the center of the city's black part of town. The Scotsboro Boys were 9 black teenagers accused of raping 2 white women in 1931. This incident dealt with racism and the right to a fair trial. The cases included lynch mobs and all-white juries. It is commonly cited as an example of a legal injustice in the United States legal system. The 8 convicted defendants were assembled on April 9, 1931, and sentenced to death by electric chair. The Associated Press reported that the defendants were calm and stoic as Judge Hawkins handed down the death sentences one after another. George Stinny was a black boy who, at the age of 14, was convicted and then executed in an unfair trial for the murders of 2 young white girls in South Carolina. He was convicted, sentenced to death, and executed by electric chair in June 1944, thus becoming the youngest American executed in the 20th century. Lena Baker was a black woman who was convicted of capital murder of a white man, Ernest Knight. In 1944, Baker started working for Ernest Knight. He sexually assaulted Lena multiple times. He would keep her there imprisoned for days at a time. One night, an argument between the two ensued, during which Knight threatened Baker with an iron bar. As she tried to escape, they struggled over his pistol and she shot and killed him. She immediately reported the incident and said she had acted in self-defense. She was executed by the state of Georgia in 1945. Baker was the only woman in Georgia to be executed by electrocution. Emmett Till was a black teenager who was abducted and lynched in Mississippi in 1955 after being accused of offending a white woman, Carolyn Bryant, in her family's grocery store. The brutality of his murder and the acquittal of his killers drew attention to the long history of violent persecution of black people in the United States. Protected against double jeopardy, Bryant and Milam struck a deal with Look magazine in 1956 to tell their story to journalist William Bradford Huey. Milam admitted to shooting Till, and neither of them believed they were guilty or that they had done anything wrong. Medgar Evers, a civil rights activist, was assassinated in Mississippi by a white supremacist in 1963. It took almost 30 years for his killer to be brought to justice because the rifle that killed Medgar was safely hidden in the judge's safe. Central Park 5. 5 teenagers were wrongfully convicted of rape in New York. Their convictions were based on forced confessions. Donald Trump, a real estate mogul, called for the return of the death penalty in a full-page advertisement. They should be forced to suffer. Yes, I want to hate these murderers, and I always will. Trump's words created a national hatred towards these teens. All 5 teens were sent to the worst prisons in America. They were finally exonerated in 2002 after DNA evidence and confessions proved their innocence. The Central Park 5 never received an apology from Trump. Rodney King was a black man who was a victim of police brutality. On March 3, 1991, he was severely beaten by officers of the Los Angeles Police Department. The incident was filmed and covered by news media around the world. 4 officers were eventually tried on charges of use of excessive force. 3 were acquitted. The jury failed to reach a verdict on 1 charge for the 4th. Within hours of the acquittals, the 1992 Los Angeles riots started, sparked by outrage among racial minorities over the trial's verdict.
Defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A.
You know, Mama taught me that 2 wrongs don't make a right. Centuries of wrongs don't make it right either. But no need to worry, because it's just a few bad apples.